This video should serve as an example of how a student can speak about meter, rhyme, and a specific literary device to support a thesis statement during the individual oral commentary for Language A literature in the IB diploma program. I will be examining Robert Frost's poem The Pasture, which introduces his 1914 collection North of Boston. I will first explain how Frost uses meter and rhyme to create an intimate relationship with his listeners. I refer to them as listeners, of course, because Frost believes so vehemently that poetry should be spoken and heard rather than read silently. After meter and rhyme, I will discuss the literary device anthemaria and how Frost uses it to create a dialectical and colloquial language which reinforces the informality and intimacy of the poem. The first line of the poem is interesting because no two vowel sounds are repeated. That isn't especially remarkable, but it becomes meaningful when juxtaposed with lines 2 and 3. These two lines are filled with internal rhyme. The long A sounds in rake, away, make, and may, and the short ah sounds in stop, away, water, and watch. This generous use of internal rhyme contributes to the playful and light-hearted tone of the poem. It's important to note that each line has been strict iambic pentameter up until this point. The fourth line, however, shifts to iambic tetrameter. Coupled with the shift in rhythm is a direct acknowledgement of the reader. Before the fourth line of the poem, the listener assumes that the speaker is addressing a companion, or possibly speaking to himself. But in the fourth line, he speaks explicitly to you, and he does so in shortened iambic tetrameter. This has the same effect as an aside in Shakespearean drama. It creates an effect of immediacy and intimacy. You as a listener are no longer hearing a poem recited, you are being spoken to by the poet himself. We as listeners find ourselves on the inside of the poem. Notice as well how the iambic pattern is broken in the last 2 feet of the tetrameter line. This too adds to the informality of the line by breaking the strict rhythm that has been uniform until this line. The caesura, which is the break between two sentences, occurs in the middle of the third foot, also disrupting the metrical pattern of the previous lines. It all contributes to the informal, intimate feeling of the fourth line. It's an effect that free verse simply can't equal. I'm going to shift now to discuss Frost's use of anthemaria to enhance the feeling of intimacy and informality created by the form and meter. Anthemaria is the substitution of one part of speech for another. When adjectives are used as adverbs, when prepositions as adjectives, adjectives as nouns, nouns as adjectives, etc. Turning nouns into adjectives is Frost's favorite substitution, and he does this because this form of grammatical substitution is typical of New England dialects. So, instead of saying, I'm going out to clean the spring in the pasture in the first line of the poem, he says, pasture spring. Pasture, normally a noun, becomes an adjective, modifying spring. The use of anthemaria is common to Frost poetry. Frost keenly observed, recorded, and remembered the speech habits of New Englanders, and deliberately infused his own poetry with the patterns that he heard. In a similar vein, the contraction "shan't" for "shall not" adds to the colloquial informality and intimacy of this poem. Now, while this isn't a complete IOC example, I hope that it exemplifies how one can draw connections between the use of literary devices and the effects that they create within a poem.